For the animations, we're going to start off with just pure CSS to use all these keyframes that we can use to start creating these small animations. So just close down your two app modules for now, or maybe we'll go back to them later, and let's just navigate to our home page and our home.css. So we're going to be using those two. Now, if you want, you can delete this or you can keep this, really up to you. I'm just gonna keep this code here and just write something else. I'm gonna create a class down here and I'm gonna call it FadeIn. So a div class called FadeIn, fades in. So we're going to attach some CSS to this. So once the page loads, it's gonna fade in from opacity of 0 or the alpha channel of 0 to 100%. That's kind of our goal to do now. So click save, go to your here, and hopefully it has a fade in. That's awesome, right? So now we're ready to start diving into the CSS for this part. And as I mentioned, we're going to be using something called keyframes. And keyframes are like markers, I want to say. When you do videos, it's very similar to this. So when you get to a specific marker, you need to do something else. A little like our media queries for the responsive part. So let's start out by making a @, and if you go down to well, whatever, keyframes, just push K, that's what we want. So this is like creating media queries, this is like creating mixins or functions for that matter. We start by having the the name of what we want to do, and then we add a name for it. And we're going to name ours FadeIn here. So this is also the reason why we named the div block that one. Woo! What we want to do in our keyframe, we want to start it from somewhere, and we do this with the from. We use these what are now called curly brackets to say where do you want to start from, and now we can do a lot of CSS. In our case, since we want to do it from opacity from 0, opacity from 0%, so transparent basically. And then we want to have one for 2. So from 0 opacity to opacity 1. So this will create our opacity level that we can start using when we get a little further on. So if you click save, you can go check it out. I don't think it does anything because we need to add a little bit more to this. We need to add and attach some CSS to our class here. So let's do this. So FadeIn. Let's just do space here. And here we're going to do give it a name like we did, for example, with our display grid. If you recall that, we gave it a name. So animation name, and we're gonna call this FadeIn, like this. So this, we're just naming it so we can reuse it later on. And we're also going to give it a duration here. There we go. So how long should the duration be from when it goes from 0 to 100% of the opacity? I'm just going to set it to 3 seconds. Let's do 4 so we can actually see it if it runs a little fast. We can add more if you want to, some background color of super awesome green, or whatever you want, margin, padding, go nuts with it. Really up to you. But that's kind of the first thing we want. So let's go check out what that actually does to our app. So now you can see it fades in down here. Woo! Cool, right? We can do a little bit more, or we can continue adding for this, but this is kind of what we need to do for a fade in. So it's somewhat similar to what we've been doing before with transitions and all these things with CSS, but in this case we used from and to, but there's also another way to do this. So we can also create a keyframe down here, keyframe. And let's call this more faces fade in. That's a good name. And this will just to illustrate what the other way we can do it. Instead of having it from to, which is only like 2 different, so start from here, end to here. We can also set 0% and then have our opacity in here for 0. We can then go 25%. Opacity, it's not in percentage, it's 0.25, and you know where I'm going, so 50, 75, and the end 100%. So you can just add as many of these as you want, really. .00, or just 1, that's fine enough. And then you would do the same, creating your, in this case, if it followed the other one, a class called FadeIn, and attach that to a div. And in here, we do the animation name. Let's call this the same as before, more FadeIn, and the duration, and so on, and so, or the delay. We can also add a delay. Let's try that actually. That's just 2 seconds, it doesn't really matter. But here we're just using percentage instead of from to, so now we're just declaring it where it needs to start from and to instead. It's still gonna work. Let's try adding the delay for this. So up here we have a duration, and let's add a delay and see what that does. So let's delay it by 2 seconds. So let's refresh, and it just runs over, which is kind of not awesome. But as you can see, that you have to set it at the CSS a little bit different. But as you can see, we can add delay for this as well. So wait 2 seconds until the animation will start, of course. Or we can set a loop or whatever. But this is kind of the pure CSS way of importing animation. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can use a third party, something called Animate CSS, this up here. As you can see, this is where I got the zoom out. Woo! Looks awesome, right? So using this animate here, dragging that into our Ionic and start animating things, cards, text, buttons, whatever we want, by using already pre-programmed CSS, and that's what we're going to do. So see you in the next video.